Okay, Rach, are you ready to go?
Yes.
What are we doing?
I don't know. I thought you knew.
No, aren't you supposed to be running the show? Which guest have we got?
Don't make me the boss of stuff.
You're the boss of stuff.
Let's wing it.
And go.
Hi, welcome to the This Is My Voice podcast.
The podcast where we discuss all things voice performance and talk to some of the industry's best and brightest talent.
We're your hosts, Rachel Salas.
And Eddie Bai. Well, welcome back to the This Is My Voice podcast with me, Eddie Bai, and Rachel Salas.
Hello.
And we have the indubitable Simon Kennedy with us today. I don't even know what that word means. Simon Kennedy with us today. And we're going to talk a little bit about AVA and the introduction of AI voices and what it means for us voice artists in the industry. Welcome, Simon.
Hey, thank you, Eddie. Thank you, Rachel. It's good to be here.
Now, quickly, give us a bit of a rundown on the MEAA and what and how AVA came out, even though we do effectively have a union for us voices anyway.
Yeah, look, I mean, I'm a union member and have been for many, many years. But the union do look after a lot of interests, and voice artists are just one of those. And when I was in the US in 2023, I was over there for a voiceover conference and awards, and I saw Tim Friedlander and Karen Gilfrey, who are from NAVA, the National Association of Voice Actors, talking about AI, and it made me realize that we were well and truly on the back foot of thinking about this technology here in Australia in the voice community. So when I came back, I tried to get some conversations going, with the union. But the union it's a slower moving beast, and I realised that SAG-AFTRA have NAVA in America, and it's not a bad thing for the MEAA to have AVA here in Australia. And we're not part of them, and we don't work, in opposition to them. We work alongside them in our own way. And so we were basically driving the conversation about AI with politicians and with our community of voice actors who needed to start thinking about it.
So what is the threat of AI?
Well, yeah, the threat of AI to voice actors, I guess, primarily is that we don't have any protection against anyone cloning our voices, using our recordings and creating digital doubles of ourselves that can compete with us in the marketplace. And there's no law against it. And the threat is real because the uptake on using digital voices is there. It's starting to creep in, not in all work and all levels of work, but when it does creep in, sometimes people are literally competing with their own voice. They find that they've been working on something, it could be a YouTube series or whatnot, for quite some time, a client they've worked with previously. And that client all of a sudden decides they don't want to keep paying them. So they take all their recordings, they create a digital double through one of the platforms out there, and then replace them with that digital version. So that is what's real. It's what's happening. That's the threat, and it goes against everything that is ethical about engaging with an artist, with a performing artist. There's no consent for the performance. There's no control over what's being said, and there's no compensation. So those are the pillars that we're facing. And the new, I won't say the new one, but the big one at the moment is also transparency. People don't know when they're engaging with an AI voice all the time, and we feel that they deserve to know.
You do hear them on YouTube. There's a couple of channels that I sort of watch, and I know it's an AI voice, and it's a narrator, obviously. And I think, from my sort of highly clinical listening, it doesn't take long for me to figure it out, because they are very consistent, very sort of homogenous. Like, they do have a lot of subtlety, and they've got a little bit of the personality of the person that was cloned, you know, the way that they would say a vowel or something like that. But then that vowel pops up every time, right? And then after a few sentences, you go, hang on a minute, and you're sort of onto it. But they're actually, I mean, we have to admit it, they're bloody good. And your average 16-year-old watching TikToks, they don't care. So what do we do about that, Simon?
Yeah, I think there are places where these digital voices are going to be pretty normal. I think that, and TikTok is one of them. I find that they are not engaging, though. That's one of the things that they are very homogenous. And I remember I was driving up the freeway and I couldn't stop, and I wanted to put on a podcast or something, and I said, play me a podcast about yada yada. Siri, do this. And I started playing something. And about 10 minutes into the drive, I realized that I hadn't really been listening to it. And it was completely audible. The voice was clear, but something was missing. It was kind of became like white noise because there was no dynamic to it. It wasn't real, obviously, is the point I'm making. It was an AI narrator on this thing. And because AI, it does one thing really well. It does averaging and competency. It takes the most common thing, the most done thing, and it'll make that the basis of what it gives you. So it'll give you a competent read, but competent isn't always engaging. Anyone who has sat in a conference with someone who speaks clearly, but there's no dynamic and there's no emotion behind what they knows, it's easy to fall asleep. So, in fact, I'd say a boring lecturer in a conference would probably do a better job of engaging than an AI voice would. But yeah, for short form, back to where we're going to hear this, short form like TikTok and those kind of little videos, it won't make a difference too much because it's such a short spell, you know.
What about the GPS? So, I know the voices that do, Google Maps and stuff like that because I work with them. She's an Australian female voice actor here. Now, I know, because I've auditioned for these in the past, that you literally have to start with Aardvark Avenue and you work your way down to, Ziesel Place, right? So that changes all of that. And so for a voice actor, it is like something, if you could be compensated appropriately for that use where you did get synthesized and then someone like Google or Apple Maps goes, okay, well, we'll use you, but, you'd be compensated appropriately. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, look, I don't think that there is, I don't think that AI in the voice realm is an absolute no-go. I would prefer to see, in most instances, human voices hired. But for something like that, something which is, you're basically expecting a robot and you're engaging with a robot. Robot, I'm dumbing it down by saying that. But yeah, but that, and we've always known that. Like no one listens to their Google Maps and is upset that it's not more conversational because that's not what we're there for. It's not what we've signed up for. So yeah, I think that's and the point being, you can have a much more effective tool if you use the AI technology compared to what we used to do, which was basically weeks and weeks in a studio saying everything. That's how they used to do it. And so I think it's a perfectly legitimate use like that. So long as, and this is where the control comes in, so long as the people who have custody of that data and that person's voice model keep it safe and only use it for the purpose that it's been agreed for. That is really important. A lot of the voice models out there, such as 11 Labs, for instance, most of those have been built on voice data that is non-consenting. So we're talking about thousands of hours of audiobooks that might sit in the public domain that people can listen to whenever they want at no charge. However, those voice actors never consented to training an AI model, never consented to their tone being used or their timbre or their whatnot. So that's important. Consent is important. Control is important. And as you say, compensation. As long as you get paid well enough for it and you know that voice model isn't going to get run off, taken away and used everywhere else. And then there's your career up in smoke.
And often they're a hybrid of multiple voices. It might be a combination of Eddie Bai and Simon Kennedy, and then it's very hard to say, well, that's my IP, because I know it isn't. It's 30% Simon, 30% Eddie, and 30% Nick O'Rourke, right?
Yeah.
And you go, shit, really?
Yeah, well, that's it, and it's so hard to detect, and that's why I think it's the law is really behind.
Yeah,
we should have ownership over our biometric data.
That's what I was going to ask, though. So, what's being done to change the laws in Australia, even because I know overseas you actually posted a video on Instagram recently about a lovely Scottish voice actress that discovered that her voice was being used by Scottish trains, and that would have been incredibly violating considering she didn't consent to it. But you have to read all the contracts with a fine-tooth comb. There should be provisions in place to protect people like that from this, but there's not. So how can we get this through to the government to change the laws?
Yeah, I mean, predatory contract clauses are a big issue, and the only thing we have is contract law right now. You said what is being done? Well, the answer so far is nothing. A lot of talking. There's a lot of talking, and we are definitely part of that talking. We're talking to politicians all the time about what needs to happen, but nothing's being done. Everyone's like, well, let's just wait and see what happens somewhere else, and then we'll act on it. And it's not really good enough because the tech moves so fast. But contract law is all we have right now. And you've got to read your contracts. You've got to look for something in the contract that might be a way out for them to take your voice and feed it into 11 Labs and create a second version of you. Because if you've left that door open, then you're kind of stuck. So you've got to read your contracts. If you're a member of the union, take your contract to the union and ask some advice. But and also, I mean, the Australian Association of Voice Actors, if you go to avavoices.org, there's a AI generative agreement there, which is free to download. And that is basically a contract between you and whoever's hiring you, that they'll say, we will not take your voice and clone it. We'll not take your voice and use it to train a model. It's a contract. It's there. It's free to use, free to download. And if you have a client who says, I'm not signing that, well, then have a good look at the contract they have got with you, because there might be a reason they're not signing it and something they're trying to get through.
I've been in this industry for a long time, and maybe the circles that I work in, I don't ever see that unethical behaviour from anyone in the industry that I work in. It's probably what the sort of outside actors or people that don't understand the industry and go, well, why would I pay someone to voice that when, I can go to a website and just type it in and off it goes and go, beauty, I've saved money. And I think it's like the people that are in the industry understand that voice artists are human beings and have mortgages and school fees, and they deserve to be paid for their awesome work and their experience. But you get someone who goes, I'm just going to build an ad and I need a voiceover, so I'll just get a free one. And why would I bother? Is that what's your experience there?
Yeah, it's happening because I think clients are sometimes pressuring like ad agencies and saying, can we make this cheaper? Can you use AI? They've heard the buzz. They're like, can you use AI? And there are a couple of recent commercials that have used AI, AI voices and so forth. There's radio stations that are trialing AI radio announcers and things like that. Everyone's excited about the technology, and we've got to use it. We've got to use it. But I think it'll be younger generations of employees in the sector that will give it a go. So there will be young ad creatives who are like want to try out the new thing. They have no relationship with the voice acting community. And you can never tell where it's going to come from. It's always going to be the bottom line that dictates these things. But if they end up with a bad ad, they might come back.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's funny. It's like you feel like it is the bottom and the very top that are being sort of the most under threat, I think. The bottom, that low humming, cheap and cheerfuls. And then your very top artists are being cloned. And people like myself, who sits somewhere towards the middle bottom, right, in terms of popularity as a voiceover artist, I haven't been attacked. I haven't been targeted myself yet, that I'm aware of. And I think I wonder, like, where is the threat? Do you think in the medium term, short to medium term?
Look, I mean, I think there's more of a threat of jobs being lost to it in Australia than there is people getting their voices cloned. I think most people we work with wouldn't go, I'm just going to go take Simon's voice and make a copy of it. The people who are doing that are people probably who I've had nothing to do with. But some of those people might then go, we can just go and use an AI voice. We'll see what's out there. I mean, there was an ad for Bank West, which was recently on TV, which had an American accented AI voice on it. I personally don't think it was a very good ad at all, but I would say that. But they used this American AI voice as their guide and went, oh, you know what? I kind of just like that. Let's just keep that as the thing. So that sort of thing is going to happen. But in the end, it'll be up to the quality. If the ads don't sell anything, they might go back. That's the thing. If they don't get the result they want, they'll stop using it.
So, Simon, for those who are thinking about using an AI voice, so what's the difference really between using a human versus AI? Though, why would someone go for a human though when AI is more accessible and cheaper?
Look, I mean, if you want to just say words, then an AI voice will say the words. It'll say them competently. It'll say them clearly, and you'll hear it all. If you want to convince someone of something, if you want to make somebody feel something, which I think is the biggest point, if you want to make someone feel something, then you're going to need a human to do that, because an AI voice is not going to make you feel. It doesn't do that. It doesn't do feel. It just does say, and it does it competently. But most of selling is trying to connect with an audience, and you only get that with a human.
Well, that's very well put, though. So thank you so much for having a chat with us today, Simon. We really appreciate your time.
I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Simon. That was absolutely brilliant. Mate, thank you very much. We'll let you get off to your session. Well done, mate. Thanks so much. Good stuff.
Thanks.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you for listening to This Is My Voice, the podcast about all things voice performance with the world's best voice artists. If you like what you heard, feel free to leave a review and don't forget to subscribe. This episode has been brought to you by the Australian Radio School and delivered to your ears by the Ozcast Network.